To make a perfect pie crust each time you make, I'm sharing my foolproof recipe with you. It's really simple and easy. This pastry dough will be weaved on top of my ultimate chicken pie. So please check out my chicken pie recipe as well. I'll be linking the video in the description. This pie crust is all natural and buttery. Just 5 simple ingredients and you can use this dough for both sweet and savory recipes, whichever calls for a pie crust. For this recipe, you will need 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, half cup or 1 stick of cold butter, 3 tablespoons of ice cold water, half teaspoon of salt, and 1 tablespoon of sugar. In a large mixing bowl, add in flour, salt, and sugar. If you leave out the sugar, it will turn out into a perfectly savory pastry. This measurement will yield 1 pie crust. You can double up this recipe and freeze the dough and it will work perfectly well. Mix all the dry ingredients well with a whisk. Now cube butter, which is taken straight out of the refrigerator. If you want to get a flakier pastry, you need to use cold butter. Add it right into the bowl. With the help of a pastry cutter, cut the cold butter into the flour. You can speeden up this process with the help of a food processor. You can also pinch the fat into the dry mixture with your hands. For a truly flaky buttery pie crust, you need to cut all the ingredients together and keep them cold. Also, don't do this process for a longer time as the butter will melt and turn into a greasy pastry dough. If this happens, place the bowl into the refrigerator for 2 to 3 minutes and continue the process. So just nicely and quickly cut the fat into the flour until you get a breadcrumb kind of consistency. You will also have pea-sized chunks of butter in the flour. Now it's time to add in the ice cold water. This recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of water. Since each flour is different, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon at a time, mixing gently with my clean hands after each addition. Just bring the flour together. At this stage, you can test the dough by pressing them between fingertips and it will come together. Handle the dough as little as possible since overworking will make it tough. I'm transferring the dough to a baking sheet and trying to bring it together until I get the dough in one single piece. It's very important not to overknead the dough as it will activate gluten. Form the dough into a bowl and flatten it to make a disc and shape the edges of the disc. This will help us while we try to roll out the cold pastry dough in the end. Use a cling wrap and wrap it off. Refrigerate this dough for at least an hour before you use it for your next baking project. Also, refrigeration helps the gluten to relax. Time to roll out the chilled pastry dough. Lightly dust your work surface or your pastry sheet to prevent the pie dough from sticking. Take out the chilled pastry dough and start to gently roll it. One thing to note here is that you have to let your dough relax on the counter for at least 4 to 5 minutes before rolling them out. This makes the rolling process much easier. Test your rolling pin too. Keep turning or moving the pie dough in between to ensure that it doesn't stick to the mat. If it cracks in between, just pinch it together and everything will work out. Try to apply even pressure on the dough to ensure uniform thickness to the pastry sheet. The desired thickness is 2 mm for a pie. Visible specks of butter in the dough is perfectly normal and expected. This process needs some patience, so please don't rush this part. Gently roll the dough from center out to the edge, turning in between. Now I'm going to show you how to weave a lattice pie crust with this all butter pie dough. Once the dough is rolled out, cut them into 3/4 inch strips, either with the help of a pizza cutter or with a knife. These strips need not be of the perfect uniform size. If some of the strips are thicker or thinner than the other, it's totally fine. Weave the top crust. Arrange the first row of your lattice pie crust. You can adjust the strips to have as much or as little gaps in between each strips. Once the first layer of strips are placed, lift and fold back every alternate strips. Place your lattice in there and place back the strips. Repeat the process with the next set of alternate pie strips. Once the pie crust is done weaving, apply egg wash and pop it in a preheated oven at 400 Fahrenheit for about 30 to 35 minutes or until the crust is golden. For more details on baking this pie crust, please check out my chicken pie recipe. The video link is down in the description. The texture and flavor of this pie crust is absolutely gorgeous. Even if you put it in the refrigerator and reheat and use the next day, the texture and flavor remains the same. So please try it out and let me know in the comments. See you in our next video. Thank you for watching and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe.